So I am here today with Kevin Tazjea, and we are here in the lovely Busey Woods, which is a 59-acre deciduous wood. Very lovely, large trees. Kevin, you're a poet. Tell us about that. Tell us about becoming a poet. Where did you start?
I don't know that it was something that I became, so to speak. I feel like from the moment I've been writing or reading, I've pretty much always been writing. I don't know too much about the origin point other than that I was maybe about 5 or 6 when I started reading. And as soon as I started reading, I wanted to create. So from there, you write little songs, things like that. But those are in essence, poems, just maybe inspired by music, melody.
What is your writing process? How do you go from kernel of an idea to finished poem?
I feel as though I don't typically like to put myself in a box of this is my process for writing. I go when inspiration strikes me, and that might be when I'm sitting at home watching a movie, or it might be when I'm just walking down the street, or if I'm on the phone having a conversation with someone. There are other times where I could be listening to music and that inspires me. And I listen to a range of different genres, but I don't necessarily have a process. I just kind of go with the flow. And then from, what I write down, sometimes what I write down, I don't need to touch that. And other things I might want to tinker around with. And it could be something as a week later or years later.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you find there are things that show up in your poems over like a course of poems, a period of time, where you're using sort of the same ideas or images? Do these images have some meaning for you personally that you go back to them and use them? Or maybe not use them, maybe they just show up.
I haven't found one or two things that continue to show up per se. Not that I've noticed. I'm sure that maybe if you look deeper into the code, so to speak, there could be some happenstance there. But I tend to write out of mood more than thought. So I would say that the poems, they always carry a mood with them, because that's what I write out of. That's where I find my inspiration at most times.
Do you have a poem that you could read that sort of clearly shows us that mood?
Sure, yes. This is a poem that I wrote about a year ago called I Am the Black. I am the black that you were warned about, the darkness at the bottom of the stairs that wears a fuller mouth. I am the night which will not be subdued. Antiquity says that you are me and I am you. I am the golden cast iron you so consistently abuse, never losing its shape, leaving the earth confused. I am the black on which you've built all your dreams, the first eyes to notice the weakening of its seams. I am the obsidian tide which purifies, the penetrating condemnation that sees behind your eyes. I am the rich soil that brings forth diamonds and fruit, the provider of the world's treasures which everyone loots. I am your father and mother whom you never recognize, whose souls you wish to inhabit and every aspect colonize. I am the great mystery that fuels your doubt, whose power increases sevenfold anytime hate snuffs us out. I am the truth that you find whenever you scratch a lie, the ash that allows the phoenix to rise. I am the wisdom of nations and the notion you cannot circumvent, the ever-present ears that long to hear your repent. I am the black that you were warned about, the omnipresent entity when your sins find you out.
That's very good. What kinds of words do you find in that poem that evoke the mood that you want to convey?
I am. I think that's a poem that's written out of in spite of feelings.
Okay.
In spite of everything, I still am. And so that's probably the line that drove that.
I want to ask if you could go anywhere in the world or anywhere in time as a kind of poetical pilgrimage to acknowledge the greatness of something or someone having to do with poetry, where would you go?
That's a very good question. I think that I would visit James Baldwin's loft in Paris in the 50s and 60s, just to catch all of that talent and genius that was moving through that area. All of the philosophers, all of the writers, and all of the poets, playwrights, actors, musicians. I think that's where I would go. And I picked James because he always described himself as a witness. That's how he saw himself in culture. That's how he saw himself in relationship to what was going on with African Americans. And I feel like being in the spot of the witness, you can see so many things. And yeah, a lot of times you'll be in the eye of the storm and you can only get a kernel of something here because you got all this stuff swirling around. But I feel like that way, the way that he lived, invited in a lot of different people from a lot of different perspectives and different walks of life. And so that's where I would go.
That idea is very interesting to me because I think that poetry as a field is in danger of splitting into tribes. When you look at poetry as a field, what do you see there in terms of what you're talking about with Baldwin? Do you see anything like what Baldwin offers to you in the realm of poetry generally?
I think that there's a beauty in being able to communicate with people that don't agree with us, that don't share our beliefs, that may have some beliefs that kind of throw us out of whack. And I think that, you talked about like a tribalism, where we only get around people that agree with what we agree with, that like what we like who we like, don't like who we don't like. And we rob ourselves of that grand push and pull in life. And there's a bit of struggle there that no one wants to encounter, but there's no triumph without struggle. If you look at the definition in the dictionary, that's what comes after the struggle. And so I think we have to be mindful about who we surround ourselves with. And yeah, for sure, they need to love us and whatnot, but at the very least, they need to respect us. But I feel like if we can just encounter one another, no matter what the background is, and listen, you don't have to accept just to listen. There can be inspiration in the most unlikeliest of places that we rob ourselves of if we don't.
Right. Do you have a poem that might illustrate that in some way?
I believe I do. Let's take a look here. This is called Untitled One. They do not know me, not the reasoning behind my choice of color and clothing for today. They cannot hope to comprehend why I walk the way that I do. There is more to me than the scent of my cologne or the direction in which I am looking. You may know my people, but you do not know me. I refuse to open the door of my soul because they believe that they deserve it. The sweat on my brow does not mean that I am familiar with the work of the field. My dry, smooth face does not mean that I am not. They do not know me, yet they know that they do. Their minds have engineered a composite composed of how they think I look, of how they presume I speak. Their ears are deaf to my voice in favor of one that they have custom designed for me. It reeks of intonations fashioned after the shadows of whispers, claiming to infer what makes me happy based on what's taken from me. I sing a lullaby for myself, yet the words are forever lost within the melody. But the words are never, ever lost to me. I repeat its refrain for comfort, not for slumber or rest, for I am not asleep. If they took the risk and looked in my eyes, then they would see that they don't truly know themselves, so they cannot hope to know me.
I love the introspection in your poems, the awareness of self. I mean, I feel like your poetry is a real strong light shone into a dark place.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. But I asked myself, what if you were to take that strong light and point it outward?
Then what would that yield?
That's a good question. What would that yield? It would yield, I think, a unique perspective on some part of the world, whatever you chose to look at.
I'm not going to say I haven't done that. I have done that. I think that I'm just in a particular season here where the focus is what's this undiscovered country inside me? What's this undiscovered country here? And I think that it really goes to wanting to look clearly and have a clear perspective out there. And I think that the first way to do that is once I have a definitive, clear understanding of all of those places inside me, and it's immense for all of us. It is immense. As large as we think it is, it's still that much larger. There are universes within all of us.
Sure.
That's my personal belief. Then you can clearly do that. Now, I will do that from time to time when something strikes me. I don't think as people we can just be silent when we see things. When we see things that move us, when we see things that shake us, when we see things that are wrong or unjustified, I think that we have to say something. I think that's our responsibility as artists. But right now, at this particular season, I'm having a tremendous amount of fun looking inside and letting whatever's inside of me flow out.
One last question, because I've been given the sign we're out of time. But, I have heard it said that poets finish their poetry or their poem, or they just abandon it. Which do you find yourself doing most? Do you feel like your work is finished, or do you just abandon it when you put it out there?
Is work ever really finished? Is a poem ever really finished?
It sounds like you're in the abandoned category.
I don't feel as though I've abandoned anything because I always go back to it. I always look at it. I never forget about it. Well, don't let me lie like that. Sometimes I forget, but I generally always try to peruse everything that I've written, like every year, just to see, is there growth here? Am I stunted? What's going on here? So I don't know that I would ever say I abandoned them, but also I don't know that any poem really is ever truly finished. It may stop on the page, but sometimes it keeps going in here and in here. Or someone else could get inspiration from a poem, and realistically they might be just writing a continuation of that poem that gave them inspiration.
I know I said that was the last question, because you said something that really piqued my interest, and now I'm going to ask.
Okay.
What is your sort of management of the paperwork? What system have you created to keep all this paper, the poetry and everything, in some kind of orderly arrangement that you can work with it? Curate is the word you used earlier.
Yeah, curate. It's by mood. It's by mood. It's literally by mood. There's, all of it could be listed under introspection, right? Realistically speaking. But I tend to go by grouping them together by they made me feel this way or put me in this particular place. And then I set up a file, and usually I'll put the first poem that I wrote in that series right there at the top, and I'll name the file after that poem. Because once I see that title, I automatically know, oh, this is where I am. This is where I am. So that's how I do that.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Kevin. It's been a great pleasure to get to know you.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure's been all mine.
Look forward to associating with you further.
Truly, truly.